Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the SEC championship game from Atlanta. This is the most historic and the most valued of the conference championship games. It goes all the way back to Birmingham, Alabama, 1992, with the Tide knocking off the Gators in this experiment of a championship game for a conference and risking taking a team that would move on to possibly play for a national championship and risking them against a team at that point that lost 3 games. Undefeated Alabama, 3-loss Florida. It worked out for Roy Kramer and company, and the SEC has led the charge ever since. All right, Bama and Georgia, they last met in the national championship game last year. It was a classic, and Tua led the way in overtime for the Bama win. Of course, the 2012 Classic at the SEC championship game, with Bama holding off Georgia and Aaron Murray at the end, 32-28. Like, comment, and subscribe to the voice of college football, the best discussion, debate, and analysis right here on the game we love, college football. All right, these two teams played 4 common opponents. Let's look at it. I apologize for the lack of graphics. The Big 12 championship game kicks off in just about 20 minutes. Bear with me. We're knocking this out. Just listen. All right. They both played Missouri. The Tide won the game at 39-10 at home in Tuscaloosa. They had 25-13 first down advantage, 25-13. They outrushed Mizzou 184-70, so by 114 yards. They were dominant in the air, 380-142. So Alabama, in total yardage, outgained Mizzou 564-212. They outgained Missouri by 352 yards. They turned over Mizzou 3 times. Bama only turned it over once. Couple key stats from the box score. Drew Lock, of course, prolific in many games for the Tigers, just 13 for 26 against the Tide for 142 yards. Missouri ran it 35 times for only 70 yards. 35, 70, do the math, 2 yards per carry. All right, Georgia had a more difficult time with Mizzou, although that game was on the road, 43-29 in Columbia. Mizzou actually gained 8 more first downs. So Bama had a 12 first down advantage, and Georgia was outgained in first downs 26-18. They only had a rushing advantage of 13 yards, 185-172, 13 yards, and total yardage, it was Georgia by 52 yards, 445-393. So Georgia outgained Mizzou by 52. Alabama outgained Mizzou by 352. Turnovers were a big part of this game as Mizzou turned it over 3 times and Georgia once. That's the exact ratio that Alabama had, 3-1. Again, Georgia won it by 14. Bama won it by 29. Let's look at the Tennessee result. Georgia wins 38-12. Bama wins 58-21. So Georgia wins by 26. Bama wins by 37, although that was pretty inconsequential. Bama led 28-0 at the end of the first quarter and cruised home from there. Georgia dominated in rushing, 251-66. That was a 185-yard rushing advantage, 185 plus in the rushing category. Bama, 281-131. They led by 150 yards in rushing, but of course they threw it downfield as well. Bama had 30 first downs to Tennessee's 13. 17 first down advantage for Georgia. It was 26-11, so by 15. Total yardage for Bama, 545-258. So they had a advantage in total offense by 287, plus 287 for Bama in total yardage. And for the Georgia Bulldogs, they led it by about 200 yards. All right, 38-12 and 58-21. All right, let's get to the 2 games that matter against the 2 common opponents of quality. First, the Auburn game. Bama won 52-21. They won by 31. Georgia won by 17, 27-10. They both played at home. First downs. Georgia led by 5. Bama, I don't have it here. I didn't go with the first downs right there. All right, rushing offense. Here we go. Georgia led 303 to 102. Dominated Auburn in rushing offense. Not surprising there. 303 to 102. That's a 201-yard rushing advantage for Georgia over Auburn. 201 yards. Bama was outrushed by Auburn 130 to 123. So they were outrushed by 7 yards. Georgia outrushed Auburn by 201. Passing, Georgia just led 213 to 172. That's 41 yards. 41-yard advantage passing. Bama, of course, had the big passing advantage. 377 to 153. That's 224 yards. So Bama outgained Auburn 500 to 283 by 217 yards. Georgia outgained Auburn by 242. 217, 242, pretty much the same. Turnovers, Georgia actually had a turnover against Auburn and was unable to turn over Auburn in winning 27-10. DeAndre Swift had a huge game, 17 carries for $186. For Bama, 2 of 3 5 touchdown passes. Jarrett Stidham only went 13 for 30 against the Tide's defense. So Georgia beats Auburn by 17. Bama beats Auburn by 31, only led by 3 at half. And the yardage totals were just about the same in terms of disparity. Georgia over Auburn by 242. Bama over Auburn by 217. All right, here's the big difference. The LSU game, of course. Georgia's lone defeat on the Bayou, 36-17. So they lost by 19. Bama crushed LSU in the big 1 versus 3 matchup, 29-0. All right. In first downs, Georgia was bested by LSU 20-18. Bama had 29 first downs to LSU's 13, so they led by 16 first downs. Georgia outgained in first downs by 2. Rushing offense, Georgia obliterated 113 to 275, so they were outgained on the ground by 162. Bama outrushed LSU, get this, 281, and this is LSU, 12. So they outgained LSU. Again, it's just not the disparity of the two numbers, it's the actual numbers. 281 to 12 by 269. Passing didn't much matter, but Georgia outpassed LSU by 9 yards. Of course, LSU didn't have to throw it in the second half much, 209 to 200. And Alabama crushed LSU in passing yardage, 295 to 184. So total yardage for the Tide against the LSU Tigers, 576 to 196. That's 380 yards. Bama eclipsed LSU's total yardage, 380. Georgia was outgained by 153. This is obviously a huge disparity all over the place. Georgia had 4 turnovers, LSU none. The Tide and the Tigers both had 1. Bama in this game averaged 7.6 yards per carry, 7.6 against LSU. Fromm only hit 16 of 34 passes for 2 picks, and LSU gained 5.4 yards rushing. So LSU ran it against Georgia at 5.5 yards per carry, and Georgia couldn't run it against LSU. Bama ran it down LSU's throat at almost 8 yards a carry and gave up nothing on the ground to LSU, 12 yards. Bama outgained LSU by 380. Georgia was outgained by LSU by 153. So that's the big disparity. Obviously, the big Georgia letdown at LSU, losing 36-17 by 19 points, and Bama crushed LSU 29-0. The 4 opponents that both Georgia and Alabama faced: Missouri, Tennessee, Auburn, and LSU, and we give a little bit more weight to the Auburn and LSU games because of the quality of opponent and the closeness of the games and the magnitude of the games down the stretch. Bama wins this one over Georgia 34-21, despite what I predicted in the preseason, which was Bama would go 12-0, Georgia 11-1, and then the Bulldogs would pull off the upset in the SEC championship game to move both teams into the college football playoff. Of course, that could happen if my August prediction is correct and the Bulldogs win the SEC to move on to 12-1 and drop Bama to 12-1, and they both make the playoffs. My preseason prediction was Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson. We'll see what happens today during championship weekend right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We will see you soon. Like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe to the newsletter as well. Send your email address to mine, MarkRogersTV@gmail.com, MarkRogersTV@gmail.com, for the Voice of College Football newsletter released each Monday. We'll see you next time.